Hello everyone, welcome back to the Sports Vault. Jersey Joe Archino back here. And as a football fan, regardless of the team you root for, there's really nothing worse than when your season is over before it even begins. And I think with the Vikings, it's maybe the excitement has been totally deflated. And that, of course, after Teddy Bridgewater's just significant injury. And kind of when it first came out, the news about it, it seemed like it was really bad. And then you just kept on getting more and more news, and the more that you heard about it, the more it sounded like this was as gruesome as it comes, and surprise, surprise, it is as bad as it comes. And obviously now he's set to miss the entire season, and now we all are asking the same question: are the Vikings a playoff team without him? How many wins will they manage to win without him? And what's their situation going to be at quarterback now without him? And I think to preface it all, you kind of have to say, obviously Teddy Bridgewater isn't the conventional driving force behind the Vikings' success last season. Obviously in the NFL today, you can't win unless you have a competent quarterback, and Teddy Bridgewater has done a lot of great things for his team last season. I mean, he is a master at the high percentage throws, and when you're an NFL team, you need to put your players in success to do what they do best. Teddy Bridgewater excels when it comes to the short passing game, moving the ball down the field methodically, slowly, not taking a lot of big chances down the field, handing the ball off to his great running game. They have a perfect formula set up for Teddy Bridgewater to succeed, and that's why we've seen him do some nice things in the NFL. That's why the Vikings were a playoff team last year. That's why they won 11 games and won their division. But it's one of those things now where when you have all that excitement built up, and I think Mike Zimmer, to me, is one of the best there is in the game. I've always loved him when he was with the Bengals as defensive coordinator. You always saw the organization that he had. He always had his guys ready to play, always prepared. And to me, he was one of those no-nonsense guys that was just a seamless pick to be an NFL coach. And he's done a tremendous job there as the head coach. And now the questions are there, and obviously Shaun Hill is kind of on the depth chart, the guy right behind Teddy Bridgewater. And to say that there will be a massive drop-off from a guy like Teddy to Shaun Hill, I don't know if he would see that. But I do think that it does take so much excitement away, because one thing that Teddy does have that you're going to have a very hard time replacing is his mobility, his athleticism. I mean, he is just a master in the pocket at scrambling and making plays. And when you're a quarterback like him and you play the short game, the short passing game like he does, well, that mobility, the component that he has, that's just another dynamic tool that he has to excel and work in the offense that he has. But a guy like Shaun Hill, I watched for many years Detroit when Matt Stafford, we all questioned if Matt Stafford could stay healthy enough to have a successful NFL career. And Shaun Hill never ever gave me any reason to believe that he couldn't be a competent starter for a stretch in the NFL. Now, obviously, this situation is going to be a little bit more permanent. It could be a season-long basis if the Vikings don't do more. But I think that's the next set of circumstances, and that's all people are writing about and talking about today are, what are the Vikings going to do? Are they going to bring in a guy? I just read an interesting article somebody brought up about Sam Bradford. We know Sam Bradford has been very happy about the Eagles' quarterback situation, but quite frankly, with one more preseason game left and with the season now really right around the corner, you know the Vikings are going to do something else, but there's no reason that Shaun Hill can't still keep them relevant and can't keep the Vikings in that playoff race. I still think you have to put the Vikings as a 7-9 team now. I mean, I look at their first 4 games, 2 of them on the road, 2 of them at home, at Tennessee to open up the season. Tennessee's going to be an even better team this year. Still not in love with their coaching staff. Mike Mularkey just doesn't do it for me, but you have to love their running game, which has played very well in the preseason. Then they play Green Bay after that, and the Packers are dealing with some questions of their own, but I think we all expect them to make a more of a push forward last year and the Packers started off great last season. It was all about their inability to finish. Carolina, they're going to be at Carolina, their third game. Carolina is as good as it gets right now, coming off their Super Bowl loss. I think we all expect Cam Newton to be focused again and to have this team right back where they left off. And then they play the Giants, their fourth game of the season. And the Giants, again, I think another team where there's a new head coach there. There's a lot of new pieces there. I think we expect the Giants to take another big step forward too. So their first four games, not easy at all. They have their bye week 6. Before that, they played the Texans, which again, it's so different now than when it used to be. I mean, when I just maybe 5-6 years ago, it seemed like when you went up and down the schedule, it was so much easier to look and be so confident about the wins, which ones you could identify. But in the NFL now, I mean, you look at Jacksonville, the Jacksonvilles of the world, the Oaklands of the world, the teams that were so systematically down for so long, they're the ones on the rise now. I mean, we all expect Oakland to take a huge step forward this season. Jacksonville people love the youth in the way that they're moving forward. So it's just not as easy as it used to be. But I look up and down this schedule after their bye week. They've got 2 road games against Philly, against Chicago, then Detroit. So they've got 2 division games there. Then they're at Washington, Arizona, Detroit, Dallas, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Green Bay in their final game of the season against Chicago. I think 7-9 is very fair. I've seen some people still keeping them in that playoff position, and I understand the reasoning behind it, because when you look at the Vikings from an offensive standpoint, they only had 14 touchdowns through the air last season. We know what their MO is. It's to give the ball to number 28 and Adrian Peterson, rely on their tremendous defense, which is always going to keep the score down and make it easier for their offense. But it comes down to one of those things where without the threat of that consistent offense, which can just answer your prayers when you need them to, that is just detrimental. And I think from a psychological standpoint, it means something to the team as well when you lose your quarterback the way that you do right before the season. That's not an easy mental hurdle to overcome. But Mike Zimmer, like I've said in this segment, is a no-nonsense guy. He's not a guy who makes excuses. He said just the other day, the sun is going to rise tomorrow. And certainly it has done that, and we will see what they do. One of the interesting ones, and I think the timing of this is very interesting now, with Teddy Bridgewater obviously goes down and he's out for the season. The Colin Kaepernick situation is the interesting one, and from everything that we've read and heard, it does seem like the 49ers could be very close to releasing him. And to me, I mean, I'm totally against everything that he did. I think he showed the most blatant disrespect for the American flag, for the veterans, for the people who fought and built this country with what he did. And to me, his priority is not on football. I mean, he's so focused in this agenda that he has, that he's trying to push to the forefront of the table, and that has kind of been now what defines Colin Kaepernick. It's not the football player Colin Kaepernick, it's the guy who sat down and refuses to stand for the pledge of for our anthem and for our flag. That's what now defines Colin Kaepernick. And I read an article that there's a lot of NFL GMs that just wouldn't touch this guy in a heartbeat right now. And I understand it. I mean, look, if I was a GM, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole, no matter what my situation is. It's one thing to win, but you need to win your way. I covered the Giants last season for ESPN Radio Albany, and Tom Coughlin is a guy who I have the most respect for in the world. And he always said winning the right way means everything. And it truly does. Just to kind of be able to try to salvage something behind a guy where you just don't respect what he stands for and what he has done, to me, that just isn't worth it. I would rather lose the right with the right way being my fundamental basis than win the wrong way. It just comes down to you need to believe in what you're doing, and you need to have people around you that you believe in what they are doing. And I think right now Colin Kaepernick is just not one of those guys. And again, it would be one thing if Colin Kaepernick just didn't have this distraction thing looming over him, but the Colin Kaepernick, the football player, is not who we see right now. That is not what I think he's been all about. I mean, you even go on his Instagram account. It's kind of interesting, and I think you can kind of trace people's paths in life and kind of where they are right now, and you can kind of follow stages of their psyche by following their different stages of Instagram. And Colin Kaepernick's first stage of his Instagram account was kind of very flashy. Look at me, look at my cars, look at my tattoo, look at me do this. But now it all really does seem to be pushing this agenda that he has now, where obviously he's very, very pro the Black Lives Matters movement and the racial oppression in America. And it's not to say that there aren't issues that need to be worked out in America. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But when you take the stance that he did and you disrespect our veterans, our military, our flag, that's something that's just unforgivable to a lot of people. It is to me as well, and I can't get past that. I think a lot of NFL GMs can't get past that. And this is a situation where if Colin Kaepernick, the quarterback, was the guy we would be able to identify, I think this would be a situation where with his skill set, with his speed and the way that he plays, he would have been able to slide into if the 49ers had released him. But still, I think Colin Kaepernick right now is just, we don't see him as Colin Kaepernick, the quarterback. We see him as Colin Kaepernick, the guy who's created a distraction for his team, for himself, and has just stood against a lot of things that people in this country hold very, very dear to their hearts. But that is about it for this segment. The Minnesota Vikings, we will certainly continue to see what they do, but I now have them at a 7-9 finish this season. Until the next time, Jersey Joe Archino here with the Sports Vault. Follow me on Twitter at Joe Archino and on Instagram, Jersey_Joe_Archino. And I'll catch everybody in the next episode.